Item.
Second.
Any opposition? Item passes. Number 18.
Under Health Care Agency, approve selection of an agreement with Orange County Association for Mental Health, doing business as Mental Health Association of Orange County, for multi-service center services for homeless mentally ill adults, and authorize director designee to exercise cost contingency increase not to exceed 10% under certain conditions and to execute agreement. And we do have 4 speaker requests.
Okay, please call the speakers at this time.
The first 2 speakers are Councilman Vicente Sarmiento and David Duran.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. The commute was a little longer today because of the work that's being done, but nonetheless, I wanted to come and address you as the council member that represents the ward where the Mental Health Association is housed. And I want to say, number one, thank you for supporting efforts that address this very critical problem having to do with mental health. We know it's a complex problem. We know it's a complex issue. More importantly, it's difficult and complex on where to house and where to have facilities. So as you know, Santa Ana has tried to do its best to try to work with the county in making sure that these complex issues are addressed. But we have submitted letters to you in the past, one that was submitted just yesterday, I believe, from the city manager, and one on the 21st, I believe, of May, when the item was first considered. In essence, we believe that the mission is a sound one. We know that mental health obviously is a contributory factor to a lot of our homeless population in the city and in the county. But there are some severe impacts that we felt in the city as a result of the operation there. So we appeal to you and compel you to consider some mitigating measures that hopefully will help address some of the problems that our businesses have had, some of our residents have had, and folks that live and work in that area. And Chairman Doe, when you were first appointed and came to the board, you were gracious enough to host a meeting with me at City Hall to address some of the concerns back then. I believe it was 3 years ago with respect to Mental Health Association. So to the extent I think both agencies are committed to make sure that the concerns of the patients are addressed. We know it's a low barrier facility. We know that folks come in on a volunteer basis. The hours sometimes are not compatible because there was a release time, I believe, of about 4 o'clock, which coincided with many of our schools, Monroe Elementary, Esqueta, and Cesar Chavez, that are very, very close to that site. So to the extent that those hours can be considered, we still don't think it's an ideal site, so we commit our staff and myself to work with your staff to see about a alternative site. We know that working together, I'm sure we can find a location that's more suitable. But more than anything, we just would like you to consider maybe not committing to the 3-year obligation right now, but maybe doing a month-to-month or something that's short of the 3 years, so we can work together on a more suitable, compatible site with the environment. So with that, I will let you go, and thank you very much for taking our letters into consideration.
I do have some questions, Councilman.
Sure.
Thank you for coming in. I'm confused. The letter from the city dated yesterday was actually for us to terminate our agreement with this service provider. So what are you saying? What's your ask today?
Well, my ask today is, short of terminating, and maybe one of our staff members can come up here from the city manager's office as well.
I'm reading verbatim here. It says, the city respectfully requests that the county refrain from entering into an agreement with a service provider who remains non-compliant. Isn't that what your ask is in this letter?
It is, and as a council member, I would say to the extent that you work with this service provider to become compliant, if there isn't compliance, then obviously work with us to at least see about relocating folks. There are some things that I didn't mention, that there are some compliance problems. We cited those in our May 21st letter. Service provider still hasn't become compliant.
Okay, we'll go over the details, and I can go with staff, but I'm just going to sort it out for me. Are you asking for us to terminate this contract or not? Because the letter says to terminate.
It does, and you would.
Yes or no? What's your ask?
Good morning, Chair
Yes.
and Board of Supervisors. This is Robert Cortez, Deputy City Manager for the City of Santa Ana. The intent of the letter basically is to identify some potential solutions to the issues that we're having. It was not to terminate the agreement.
Well, I'm reading verbatim. Am I misreading the letter?
I think it may be a misunderstanding maybe or interpretation of the language. Our intent simply here is to identify what the issue is and to allow us additional time in order to find more solutions. So if a month to month, if you're amenable to that, we would be agreeable to that as well. In reference to the code violations that we do reference here in the letter,
I'll
all
go
we
over those
ask
in a minute.
is
Yeah. I'm reading. It says here, we are requesting that the county refrain from entering into an agreement. That's a termination to me. What is month to month about that?
So let me clarify, Chairman. I think that we would not want you to terminate, but at least delay entering into a 3-year obligation. I think that would be a reasonable ask of you because there are some issues that are surrounding this relationship.
Okay. And I, before I ask go into the violations, in the last 2 years alone, MHA has referred over 3,000 people to supportive services. And these statistics that I'm citing they all exceed the levels required in contracts with us. They linked 253 individuals to pre-vocational services, 194 individuals to permanent housing, 194, 184 veterans into multi-service services, 192 veterans to Veterans Affairs Resources, 135 individuals to mental health services, and then assisted 62 individuals in obtaining permanent employment. This is a necessary service, and the city of Santa Ana has been working with the county to build a system of care, right? You have heard my comments many times commending the city of Santa Ana to carry more than its burden over the last 4 or 5 decades that I know of. And so I'm very confused that at this point, as I am working, and I say I because this is my district, I work very closely with the Mayor Miguel Pulido, with the court, in federal court, with Judge Carter, to build a system of care, and we're moving along, and you all know that we are looking at, right, possible solutions that maybe even be larger to accommodate a lot of these concerns. That I don't understand that at this point, why would it be advisable for us to tinker with a service that is successful?
Well, nobody's disputing the fact that there's good work being done. That's why I premised my comments by saying it's a good thing that you're supporting and funding these efforts. We're just saying that there's still some issues in its service delivery, and for you to consider how we can improve that service delivery so the impact, we've got kids and families that are being impacted. We have calls for service. We have a bike trail that's just inundated with encampments. You know the story as well as we do. We just want to make sure, to the extent that we can improve that service delivery, we want to work with you, and that's what the ask is, right, that we continue speaking.
And you picked a good day, actually, to come in and speak on that point, because a lot of assertions have been made that the homeless issues on Main Street in the Santa Ana is somehow has been the result of the MHSA or MHA site. Okay, this morning, Judge Carter took a tour of the Armory in Santa Ana and the MHA site, and we had our county council present. We have our CEO present who went with the judge, and I got comments back from the judge saying all he saw, in fact, I don't want to speak for people. Mr. Kim, why don't you describe what was it that you saw this morning and what were the comments from Judge Carter regarding the MHA site?
So we did walk the MHA site, and he indicated that the area appeared to be clean and that it was in a cleaner condition than he had previously viewed, but in terms of the visible sign of homelessness, I believe that we saw 1 or 2 individuals along the street in that area. They were close to the recycling center, and at least one of the individuals had a number of cans and bottles that appeared to be pursuing that recycling opportunity.
Right. And there's also has been a lot of statements made that the homeless on Main Street basically are spillover from the Santa Ana Armory. Did you observe that this morning, and did Judge Carter say anything about that?
We were out front in the Armory around 5:15 in the morning, and when the Armory opened its doors to let out, my understanding is that there were 110 individuals that pursued safe sleep opportunities there yesterday evening. And at least what I witnessed was I saw one individual walk out on foot, headed east toward Delhi Park area. And then I saw approximately 3 individuals that headed west on the street. There were less than 5 individuals that remain in the parking lot. All the remaining of the 110 boarded the public transportation bus, and I think there's drop-offs on Flower Street and at least one other area in Santa Ana. So I did not view large numbers of individuals that left the facility on foot, at least during the time that I was there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I just share some numbers as well that our staff has accumulated?
Sure. Over the past 6 years, the city has received over 5,800 calls for service directly tied to the area between Warner and Dyer, which is directly related to all the homeless issues that we're facing in that specific vicinity.
Thank you. And just in closing, Chairman, and thank you for the ability, again, to address you in an expanded manner. We certainly don't believe that, and with all due respect, would disagree that the problem is a minor one. It isn't one. It's a very, very severe problem in our city, as you know, and you've been working very hard with the judge, with our staff, and our mayor. We just want to let you know that regardless of what was seen at 5:15 in the morning, when you see it when things are let out at 3:30 and 4 p.m., it's a much, much different reality. And there are photographs that were sent to you by some of our community members and residents that are just fearful to come out of their homes. So I just wanted to share that with you as a representative of those constituents that live and work in the area.
Right. And Councilman, it's really important that we get the facts straight. I'm looking at pictures, right, presented by your staff. And these are encampments. And it's really critical to understand the distinction when we talk about encampments, because when the accusation is that these people come from the MHA site, usually they don't come out of the site with all of this with them. It doesn't make any sense, right? When you have someone with this kind of encampment, that doesn't tell me that there's nothing to indicate that they come or came from the MHA site. So just because we have a homeless problem, which I understand is a heavy problem, is something that has been burdening Santa Ana for a long time. But we have to be able to have a causation that these homeless encampments came from MHA. And I don't see any evidence of it. We have driven Main Street, my staff and I, many times. Judge Carter has done the same thing. My staff, I asked Mr. Kim to do that, because we have also worked with HCA. Jeff Nagel is here, and I will ask him to come up later to tell the public all of the enhancement in terms of services and security that we have provided at that particular site. And so it is hard for me to understand how does the city connect this, which is the problem all over the city. It's not just the area you described. Look around us outside right here. Even with the shelter right across the street, we still have lots of people milling around. And so it's important that we do not lump this problem in with a service center until we know for sure that this is the service center and the way they operate that contributes to this.
Right. So nobody is saying that the only source of the problem is the MHA facility. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying it's an element of what's causing a problem in that region, as well as the Armory. So to the extent that I've driven that site as well at 3:30 and 4 p.m. when folks are let out of the facility because it's an outpatient facility and it lets out very early, which coincides with kids being let out of school. That's the impact I'm seeing. But by no means am I trying to say that the entire problem or the nexus of homelessness to only MHA is that facility. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's one contributing element that we should try to work as agencies to improve.
Right. When I look at the letter from the city, what troubles me is when you look at the so-called violations, and I'm reading this, okay? A damaged fence, a lack of proper sign maintenance, the need for restriping of parking area, installation of required landscaping. Really? For a service this important, and this is the kind of violations that you would rely on, would harp on in order to ask us to reconsider using this site? I don't understand it, Councilman. Why isn't there more of a specific citing of actual violations, like some kind of health, safety violations in here?
In addition to those items mentioned, there are unpermitted work violations that are included, I think, within the letter. And in
For
reality,
laundry services, yes.
so those violations are really for the property owner. It's not violations of MHA. And I believe the language that's referenced in the letter is really more tied to seeking some assistance from the county and from the healthcare service agency in order for us to engage the property owner, because that's really where the issue is happening in terms of the violations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
After David Duran, the last two speakers are Jeff Thrash and Howard Mirowitz.
Interesting to hear that dialogue. Council member should have just said, we don't want him there, because that's what he's trying to say. But it's also evident throughout all of my time here, coming to these meetings, that each and every one of you have said that in some way, shape, fashion, or form. We don't want them here.
Every one of us?
I have heard, and you are on record, for talking about crack houses. If you give them a house, they're just going to become a crack house. I could go on, but I don't think you want me to.
Please continue.
So to be fair, I didn't intend to come here to criticize
Really?
the.
Have you said anything complimentary about us in the years that you've been here?
As a matter of fact, I did once. Yes. Yes, and it was to you, actually. I applauded you for recognizing that the county had failed at the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll take it
Okay. Thank you.
to my grave now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, so again, I'm just going to ask, because there's many of us that I'm asking for, that the county do a better job. I know that the task at hand is monumental. I know that it's not 100% solvable. But it seems as though the pattern that the county takes is more malicious in their efforts than to really help to cure the issue of poverty or homelessness. I say that again because there doesn't seem to be any oversight. There doesn't seem to be any real rules for people to follow. Instead, they're criminalized. And there's a whole laundry list of how that happens at county facilities or facilities that are supported by the county at various nonprofits. Do a better job.
Thank you, Chairman Doe and honorable members of the Board of Supervisors for this opportunity to speak in support of the MHA Mentally Ill Homeless Multi-Service Center. My name is Jeff Thrash. I live in Aliso Viejo. I am a licensed therapist, and I have been the CEO of the Mental Health Association for 17 years. The Homeless Multi-Service Center has operated under contract with the County of Orange for over 31 consecutive years and has been in its current location here in Santa Ana for 17 years. MHA has a proven track record for assisting chronically homeless, mentally ill individuals stabilize and get off the streets. Annually, on average, for 31 years, 134 chronically mentally ill homeless individuals are housed and off the streets of Santa Ana. 107 homeless veterans are linked with VA services to end their homelessness. 700 homeless individuals per year are linked to mental health and drug abuse services, including medication and therapy. 30 of these chronically unemployed, chronically mentally ill, chronically homeless individuals obtain mainstream employment each and every year because of our small program on Main Street. The recent increase in complaints regarding the homeless are a result of several factors. First, the Armory homeless shelter opened as usual during the cold weather months, but because of the recent homeless relocation projects, has been extended for several months, drawing a higher volume of homeless to the immediate area. Second, the relocation of 700 homeless from the Santa Ana riverbed and 200 homeless from the Civic Center, although many individuals successfully served and housed, others unwilling or unable to accept services have instead spread to the other areas of the city, including our area. And third, both the MHA Homeless Outreach Team, which is housed at the Homeless Multi-Service Center, and the County Homeless Outreach Team were temporarily diverted away from that area to outreach to homeless to assist with the Santa Ana riverbed and the Civic Center relocation. When we began operations of the Multi-Service Center in its current location 17 years ago, knowing there'd be concerns of who we serve and what we do, I personally met with the local business owners, city officials, police chief, regional commander, local neighborhood association to introduce myself, make myself, my board president, my management and staff of the Multi-Service Center available to them to assist in minimizing homeless visibility in the community. In collaboration with these various groups and on a regular and ongoing basis for 17 years, I developed a good neighbor policy, which I have distributed for your review. This includes a security guard outreach team to provide rounds to the local businesses every 30 minutes, security cameras, transport of clients to and from the building, a zero tolerance policy toward illegal behavior in the community that is presented to our clients on a daily basis and required of them to receive services at our center. The Multi-Service Center serves 80 to 90 homeless mentally ill individuals per day, and to receive these services, they must behave appropriately to and from the program.
Please wrap up your comments.
However, this small program is blamed for every homeless individual in the area, the majority of which are not our clients. In spite of the fact that the homeless shelter 2 blocks away, a railroad track, which has been a homeless encampment long before we got there,
Sir, your time is up.
away. There's no doubt that everyone cares about the homeless. There's also no doubt they want them off the streets. We want the same thing. We invite them in. We provide services. We get them off the streets with treatment. Thank you for your time.
Last speaker, Howard Merowitz.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name's Howard Merowitz. I live in Irvine, and I've been an Orange County resident for 38 years. Since retiring in 2000, I've been active in several government operations, oversight committees, and county charitable causes providing services to the homeless and mentally ill. Among these activities, I served on the 2006-2007 Orange County Grand Jury, which investigated, among other things, how Proposition 63, which had just been adopted at that time, was being implemented by the county. As a part of that investigation, I, along with other members of the grand jury, met with and visited the facilities of the contractors that the county health care agency was working with at that time to implement Prop 63 funded mental health programs, specifically including the Mental Health Association's Homeless Drop-In Center. I found myself quite positively impressed with MHA's management and with the Drop-In Center and its programs, so much so that after my grand jury service, when I was asked to join the MHA Board of Directors, I quickly accepted. I've now been on the organization's board for 10 years, including 2 years as board chair. And in my experience, the quality of MHA's management and programs at the Drop-In Center during this entire period has consistently remained at the same high level as I observed when I was a grand jury member, including the organization's efforts to accommodate the concerns and complaints coming from the businesses in the vicinity of the drop-in center that have continued throughout my tenure on the MHA board. I might also add that the oversight of MHA's operations at the drop-in center by Orange County Healthcare Agency's Behavioral Health Services has been extremely detailed and thorough throughout this entire time. And that was an area that the original grand jury report said that the county had to work on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this agenda item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No, we don't.
Jeff, if you can come up for a moment. Jeff Nagel sent an email to my staff in which he outlined all of the enhanced services. Sir, it's Jeff Nagel. I apologize.
Oh, wrong Jeff.
Yeah, yeah. Enhanced services at the MHA Center to address specifically the concerns cited by the city of Santa Ana. So without reading the whole email, can you just go over those services, the additional services that we have provided to assist MHA in order to address, this issue of securities and encampments and the homeless congregation on Main Street?
Certainly. Jeff Nagel, Healthcare Agency. Some of the things that we have done in collaboration with MHA, we have increased their security guard hours so that there's more security guard presence. We've increased the number and frequency of sweeps in the general neighborhood, so the security guard is actually going out to the local businesses. We've increased our blue shirt teams, kind of focusing in that area so that our outreach and engagement are working along with the City of Santa Ana Police Department so that they are going on and engaging with the homeless, trying to identify those that have mental health needs, linking them with services, and those that don't have mental health needs, looking for other services so that we can remove those individuals from that local business area. So we're trying to engage the homeless like the outreach and engagement team does anyhow, but we've had some specific focus in that area. We've also, while it is actually the landlord's responsibility to do the repairs of the facility, MHA has taken it on themselves to replace all the lights, to do some of the code violations they've actually addressed themselves, even though it isn't ultimately their responsibility. And something I do want to point out is HCA, that the behavioral health team has been meeting with the City of Santa Ana staff, with Robert Cortez and some of the other staff members, looking at some proactive solutions. But I did want to let you know that we are working with the city. We are aware of the business complaints that have come in, and we're looking for proactive solutions. And so these are some of the things that we've done. Now, the other thing that the current ASR does that we haven't done previously is we're adding additional dollars to expand the hours of operation to be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that will address the kind of the closure of the program when the schools are coming out. So this expansion would actually, I think, alleviate some of those concerns by the community. I did identify some other things in the email I sent, but I think that's a good summary.
Thank you. That's all I need for now. I just have a few short comments, colleagues. It's important that I have to lay the facts for the record because I'm sure Judge Carter will be listening in on this. And the public will want to hear this in order to follow what really is going on because Santa Ana, at the end of the day, is the epicenter of the homeless issue and how we, as a county, in conjunction with cities in the county, come up with a system of care. Mayor Polito has been working extremely closely with me and Judge Carter to try to spearhead an effort that now includes all of the cities in the county and nonprofits, faith-based organizations, to create a system of care. We have that in place being worked on right now. Unfortunately, the city of Santa Ana has a very fractious council. And so there are people that are trying to run for office, that are trying to run for mayor, And they're trying to create fake crisis in order to have an agenda, a platform. And I really resent having to deal with these issues on a sporadic basis. And this is not the only time. This is just the most visible that I have had to deal with, because the city actually has gone on the record to oppose a contract for a very necessary service in our community. We have had to deal with Wise Place, the difficulty in getting a permit. And then after they give the permit, artificially putting a deadline of 90 days, creating a lot of turmoil in the residents, in the system, causing a lot of consternation from the court. Once I started working with Mayor Polito, guess what? We addressed it. American Family Housing, we tried to create recuperative care capacity. Same thing, cannot get the permit from the city. And now MHA. It is ironic to me that the Civic Center in Santa Ana was cleared out by whom? By the Santa Ana Police Department. The healthcare department for the county merely assisted in terms of assisting people. It's the police department from Santa Ana that actually cleared out the encampments. People must know that when you clear out an encampment, not every one of those people will be receptive to service. Where do you think they're going to go? So when the city clamored to Judge Carter to clear up the Civic Center, somehow blame it on as a responsibility of the county, and then we assisted in clearing it out, and now we push some of those people out into the city. Now it becomes our responsibility and MHSA's responsibility. I would like the city council to get on the same page, have a unified voice, because this is too big of a problem for it to be a campaign issue. Okay? There's no one that can say that they have taken on this issue more rigorously and have defended Santa Ana more rigorously than I have. And I cannot continue to have my work be obstructed like this, not just now, but in terms of us fulfilling our contracts within the city of Santa Ana. It's taking time and valuable resource away from the county and county staff to have to deal with those little, conflagration that happens all the time when we do our work. So please, don't let MHA be a victim of that, colleagues. And with that, I move the item. Second?
Second.
Yeah. Any opposition? Item passes. Thank you. Number 19.
Under OC Public Works, approve contract with Golden State